Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it. You already know. Like a torta with a snack habit. Bye, bye. Let's get to the intro. Welcome back, and if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all. Ding! So that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate the support, man. I'm very humbled by it. So, Mohawk Mizat, right? Mohawk Matt, the South Side white man. Look, I've been trying, bear with me, to stay away from opening up a can of whoop ass or a can of worms on a new individual. But this guy, Mohawk Matt, man, this guy is exposing himself in every story he tells, right? You know, when I was doing time in prison, I had two favorite authors. One of them was Sidney Sheldon. He wrote a book called The Master of the Game. Anyone that's been in prison that had the time to sit down or even on the streets to read that book, one of my favorite books, right? It's a banger. And then there was another author named Harold Robbins who wrote a book called The Storyteller, right? Now, I can compare Mohawk Matt to him because he's a great storyteller. He tells all these stories about prison. He's been making the rounds ever since he was on Soft White Underbelly. Now he pulls up to American Cholo and he's telling these stories. But I'm here to tell you, some of these stories are rather Wes Watson-ish. They just don't meet the eye. Hey, more than meets the eye, right? First of all, you have a man that is from a barrio, a South Sider, Southern California, right? And decides because of his ethnicity, brother, I'm just going to go wood. He goes to county jail and he identifies as a wood. Now, I can't be mad at someone for sticking to their peoples, but I've never seen that happen besides one other time, and it was a dude from my neighborhood, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But this guy decided, you know what? It's probably easier being a wood, brother. He didn't want to deal with all the South Side politics and all the shenanigans, even though he grew up with the gente, grew up with the raza. Oh, the tacos were all bomb. You know what I'm saying? Them tortas were tortain, the tastasin was tastasin. And then he gets to the county jail and decides he's going to trade all that in for Salisbury Steak. Fuck that, brother. Meth and death. I skin that, right? He switches up. It happens, right? Now, no harm, no foul. No flags on the plate. If a man wants to go into the county jail and identify as a cat, nowadays, he could do that, right? And this guy identified as a white man because, hey, he literally is a white man. And ain't nothing wrong with being a white man, brother. I'm just going to say that right off the tippy top. You know, man, ain't nothing wrong with broken down lawnmowers, you know what I'm saying, recycled cans, Salisbury steak, and a whole lot of meth. Ain't nothing wrong with it if that's what you choose to involve yourself in and do. But at the end of the day, it just boggles my mind that a dude who was raised around, involved in a barrio, you know, went that way, decided to double back and go white when it was time and it was right. But that's what this dude Mohawk Matt did. That's what makes him the anomaly. The fact that he got out in good standings and is still embraced by the Southerners and the Woods, brother. Right? That Vato's the best of both worlds, I guess. Right? He's got everyone got love for Mohawk Matt. Anyways, this guy pops up on Soft White Underbelly and he's telling his story. And everyone has a unique story. You know, there is no story about prison that is not right or wrong. Everyone has a unique story. That means what happened in my stay in prison is not necessarily what happened in your stay. We go to different places. We could be on the same prison yard at the same time, and your experience is going to be different from my experience. My experience might be Universal Studios, everything in HD, 3D, right there in front of me. Yours could be just kicking back, reading Harold Robbins storyteller books. Just is what it is. But when a person has been in prison, like myself, it's easy for us to identify those storytellers from those who really lived it in real life. Now, just because a person was in prison on a certain level of a yard or not doesn't make anyone more man than him or more man than me. That's not how that goes, right? But when you're bullshitting the gente, when you're lying to the people, when your stories are being exposed for not having a lot of facts within the story, people are going to feel some type of way. You're going to lose your credibility. People are going to be like, hell nah. People that have been in prison, like, bro, look, I'll tell you one thing he said on American Cholo that blew my mind. And I watched it. Shout out to Gil for a great episode, right? I got to keep it real and respectful. He hasn't talked about me, so I ain't got nothing bad to say about him lately. But I'll say this. This dude, Mohawk Matt, literally sat down in a chair in Gil's garage and said out of his own mouth that the CDCR gives out steel-toed boots. Yahoo. I've been to prison. I got 19 years of incarceration. Been to several prisons, right? Never once in the history of prisondom did I ever receive a pair of steel-toed boots. Okay? If the CDCR was giving out steel-toed boots, that's breaking news to me. Can you imagine the lawsuits they would have got when every single person on that yard, knowing those are steel-toe boots, ripped the metal out of those steel-toe boots and got to stabbing people with the steel toe from the boot, right? Can you imagine how many lawsuits people would get because there would be so many dudes kicking people's heads off their shoulders? Look, Mohawk Matt, maybe you got your story mixed up with a mosh pit, but there's a big difference between a prison and a mosh pit. One, Exhibit A. In a mosh pit, yes, there's spikes, steel-toe boots, and crazy white men, right? Exhibit B. In prison, I'll be damned if they give anyone any type of weapon stock that they can utilize just to give it to them. They're not giving you fucking steel-toe boots, bro. Stop lying. Now, he told another story about the woods. And mind you, none of these have a direct impact on me. It's just, I think it's hilarious that this guy's over there doing too much. Look, tell your story, bro. Hey, you were a white man that was a Southside. You got a unique story. It's very different. No one does that. You're the pick of the litter, right? You did something that no one else does. Literally. Very few. You know, he's like the Michael Jackson of the prison genre, right? This dude fucking is just different. You know, Dirty Diana. They're about to tell a story about Dirty Diana. So this dude talks about he was on the yard with the skins in the woods, brother. Which, of course, he was because he chose that. And he chose to go with his peoples. Can't knock him. And in the midst of going with his peoples, an incident happens on the yard. And he said, quote, these woods and skins got off on a white crip. Now, I'll tell you this. The white crips are very hated in the California prison system. Doesn't mean that every yard they hit, they're fucking ran up on or they get jumped on because the brothers ain't having that. Usually if it's a white crip, that means his crippin' is crippin' on Cricka, and he runs with the blacks, with the brothers, right, with the crips. So they're not just going to let any old white man come into their area and get off. That's not the way prison works in the California system, especially white men being able to go to the table where a white crip is sitting on the black side of the yard and northern side of the yard and other side of the yard and just walk on over there, just mosey on over there like the tower's not watching them, right? And several of them are going to go over and continuously saw off with the metal they ripped out of their steel-toed boots, the imaginary steel-toed never-ending story boots, and get to severing this guy's head off. This is according to his story. And just get to cutting, sitting on the black side of the yard. No brothers there. You know, first of all, the Bloods, the Kumis, the Nigerians, the motherfucking Muslims, the non-affiliates, all these different black groups would have been like, oh yeah, see, look, they're just cutting off a fucking white crip's head. It's no big deal. No harm, no foul. It's not us, right? It's not the way it works. Couldn't have been done. Shouldn't have been done. Wouldn't have been done. The tower would have seen them severing this dude's head off for 15, 20 minutes, as long as it took them, this guy said. And so what they do, they just place the head right there and walk back to their side of the yard, tell the south side, hey, look what we just did. Nah, that's not the way it works. Okay, the moment that they would have got up, tower would have been on them. As soon as they would have crossed that threshold or that line, Northerners would have jumped up. Other black groups would have been jumped up like, hey, homie, what's going on here? You motherfuckers trying to apply pressure. So I call bullshit on that story. That's another outlandish story. That's like I said, Wes Watson is. It's a fucking story that's told that's a lie. Didn't happen. Couldn't happen. On a prison yard, yes, people have had their shit severed off. You know, Jaime Osuna did a celly. It took him all night long with a fucking string out of his sock. There's no way these guys are going to go over there and cut a white Crip's head off and just leave it on the table and prone out in the position and whatever. Just a fake story, right? And I think people are starting to realize that these stories that this dude Mohawk Matt is telling are for nothing. Like, okay, I understand that maybe you're trying to detour people from going to prison. Telling these crazy outlandish stories is going to get people to think before they thunk and not go there. But the fucking truth is, homie, that's a lie. You know what I'm saying? The lie detector test has detected you was lying, cuz. On power, right? You lied. But whatever. To each their own. So now let's get back to this man functioning as a white man. You got choices. And I've always told people when they ask me, they're like, oh man, can you run this or you can run that? You could run whatever you want, but most people have been running and gunning like that prior to incarceration. You see, I got some homeboys that are black. I got some homeboys that are white from my neighborhood, right? If you ask them, hey, homie, what do you identify as? First of all, they're going to be like, nah, I voted for Trump. They're going to be different, right? They're going to be like, I don't identify. Should I identify as a man, right? No, what? They're going to be like a norteño. Like, that's it, bro. I'm not a white norteño or a black norteño. You make me that. I'm just a norteño. That's how it is. And they're going to go to the county jail and they're going to run with the homies because that's all they know. And then they're going to go to prison and they're going to run with the homies because that's all they know, right? And whatever fucking happens because they're willing to roll with those punches because that is all they know. See, in Mohawk Matt's defense, that wasn't all he knew. You know, he tried to unknow that. I don't want to know that no more. And so he decided, you know what I mean? I got to be white, brother. I got to stick with my peoples. All of a sudden. Not all of a sudden. All of a sudden. And so that's what he does. Now, Mohawk Matt's getting famous over this interview that did millions of views with Soft White Underbelly. And, you know, he has the resume. He has the paint job. He has the tattoos. He's been in prison. He was an active gang member. Whatever. In fact, I can't say active gang member because he ceased to become that when he just became a white man at the front gates. Now, it leads me to a story I wanted to tell you guys. You know, I've seen people try to go a different route because they feel it's probably easier. You know, as a norteño, there was a struggle. There was a strive and there was a struggle. You knew that you were the minority group in the prison system as far as gang members in the Mexican groups. You knew that there was going to be a lot of hardship. They could send you anywhere to Southern California, Northern California. You got to keep your fucking shirt on, all kinds of different rules and regulations. And it's just, you know, your own people doing removals consistently. Like being a norteño was not an easy thing or an easy task. It was more than just doing your time. You had to do your time the way they wanted you to do your time. That's a fact, right? Same thing with the Southsiders. There was a lot of internal conflict, because there was so many of them on the yard, there was a lot more drama when it came to within their group as well as other groups. That's just the way it is. That's what being a Southsider is. There's an arrogance. There's a certain type of way you have to carry yourself. And if you don't rock the way you're supposed to rock, then you will get rocked the way they want to rock you. You know what I'm saying? I want to rock with you. They're going to Michael Jackson you. They're going to moonwalk all over you. Now, I think Mohawk Matt thought if I go the white route, brother, it's going to be a lot easier. I could just be a wood, go in there, do my time. But what he didn't realize, what I'm sure he realized after, that they were fucking cutting people's heads off on the yard, according to him. It was worse than it is even being a Southsider or a Northerner because them whites, brother, if it ain't white, it ain't right. They are the minority and against everybody and everything. That's how that goes. You know, I imagine, you know, because being locked up, and I'm trying to get my words right, that Matt had to get into with the Southsiders. I'm not sure if he was actually there when it happened, but in my time, there was plenty of times that the Southsiders and the whites got off on each other more so than any other groups. There was always conflict with the whites and the Southsiders. Southsiders felt like they could run the whites program. The whites felt like, brother, you ain't going to run nothing. The skins, especially, right? They weren't taking no shit from no other race, no other ethnicity or whatever, however you want to spin it. So I'm wondering if Matt had to fight some of the same people from his neighborhood or his barrio or his group that he once was a part of and how he felt doing that. Because, you know, that'd be a hard pill to swallow. That's something hard to do. Go against your own gente, the people that you ate tacos with and bon tortas with. And now all of a sudden, because you made a choice, a conscious decision I'm just going to ride white, brother, right? It's the easiest thing to do, which in fact it wasn't. You know, how that played out. Let me tell you guys a story. So I had a homeboy from my neighborhood, right? We were in county jail. He had 14s on him, all that. We were doing time. He was facing a prison term. I was facing a prison term, right? This time I was able to bamboozle and wiggle my way out of it, get me a good lawyer, and I was able to beat a case, right? Which is one of the only cases I've ever beaten in my life. And I got back out to the streets. And I was living on 13th Street in Merced. It's right across, it's a ghetto. I mean, like I said, it's a roach motel. There's more roaches than there are people there. Way more, right? It's right across from the post office, man. GB, the rapper, he's made videos in the alley and all kinds of shit. And my dog got the zoomies. He's zoomed out right now. And so, anyways, that's where I was staying. I got out. The homeboy, who was the homeboy at the time, he was a bigger fellow, curly hair. I remember. I'll never forget, man. He was the homie. He ends up going to prison. He goes to Tracy for a few minutes, and I don't know what he was identifying as there, right? But I know that ultimately he ended up a bitch. But we'll get to that. He ends up going to San Quentin. Now, for those that have ever been to San Quentin, let me give you the breakdown. We all know that the Paisa car runs with the Southsiders. Doesn't mean that Southsiders run their program or tell them what to do, but they run hand in hand. They function on the same side of the yards in the prison system with the Southsiders. You know what I'm saying? Because puro mexicanos, rifamos, controlamos, all that shit, they're over there chilling with the Southerners. That's just what it is. If they get into some shit, 9 times out of 10, the Southerners are back their play and vice versa. It's just the way it is. But San Quentin's a different thing. In San Quentin, the Paisas have been known to run with the Norteños, or not run hand in hand with them, but be cool with them. Only in San Quentin. So this guy gets to San Quentin and decides that he's going to let the Norte go. He's going to tell everyone that he runs Paisa. Because he's like, fuck, I can go over here, not have to get involved in the hardships and the máquina and the rutina and the part of the program and the structure and all that of what the Norteños got going on. I could go over here and chill. Now, this is reception at the time. I can go over here and chill with the Paisas, blend right in, because he was, in a literal sense, he was Mexicano. He was a Paisa anyways, right? Just a Norteño. Look at, so he's like, I could do this, I could do that, and whatever, right? Whatever it is. Hey, butt scraper, are you trying to scrape your butt again? Or are you over there playing? So anyway, look at my dog. He's a nut. So anyways, he goes to San Quentin, right? Goes to San Quentin. He's now identifying as a Paisa. That's who he's with. No more Norteño for him. So I'm out. A homeboy gets out. He was in Quentin with them, right? And now it's a couple years down the road. And he's like, hey, remember the homeboy whoop de whoop? I said, yeah. What's up? What happened? Where did he end up going? He's like, that fool was running Paisa in San Quentin. I said, serio? It is what it is, right? He goes, yeah, but that fool ended up getting shipped to a level 3 yard, and he was over there running with the Southsiders, and they got into it with the homies over there, and he was involved. I said, so wait, hold up. You mean to tell me that a homeboy that was a Norteño that I know very well, hey, shh, that's why I put you in there, because you don't know how to act. Stop. I'm recording. So I said, a homeboy went to over there, and then he started to claim be a Paisa, and then all of a sudden, look at this cat. Look at this dog. He's going to steal the show. Look at him. Hey, stop. Be a good boy. So I had to go fucking take my dog and throw him off the balcony. Nah, I had to put him in his cage, man. He needs to relax a little bit. He's too hyphy. About to listen to a Mac Dre song and starts getting the zoomies. Anyways, right? So this guy goes to a prison, was a Norteño, and all of a sudden he's going against the grain and he's jumping on homies and all that because now he's rocking with the Paisas and they back the Southerners up where he's at and they get into some shit. So now we're feeling some type of way. So now it's all point bulletin. So now it's green light. So now it's when we see you, we saw you, right? Well, here's the kicker in the story. This dude had a couple kids from my prima, from my cousin, right? And she's one of those cousins that I didn't really talk to too much, man. Her mom is actually my cousin, my first cousin. She's the daughter, right? But whatever. So I'm living in this ghetto-ass, grimy apartment complex. You know, just grimy. I was active at the time, whatever, right? And it was to the point where like anything could pop off at any time. It was on the west side. It was just ghetto. And one of the homies comes over and he's like, hey, what's up, fool? I'm like, oh, what's up? And we're chilling. And my prima, I see her walking by. And I'm like, in the apartment complex, I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, oh, what's up, fool? I said, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, we moved into the house over there on the other side, right? I just went grocery shopping, whatever. And I was like, yeah, what's up with your old man? And I'm just saying it to say, she was like, oh, he got out a few days ago. Well, hold up. The paisa got out. Where's he living at? Staying with his family and shit. She's like, no, we're back together. He's, I held it strong for him. All right, cool. I tell the homeboy, call the other homie, it's time, right? So he calls him. She already knows. I knock at the door. Boom, 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 boom. She opens the door and her face turns white and her jaw drops and she's like, fuck. I said, tell your old man, come out here real quick. That fool comes out all fat, looking like the Mexican OT, right? Tattoos all covered. All of a sudden he has Mexico, Viva Mexico, Hecho en Mexico, Hecho en Modesto. Stop it, right? That fool comes over, boom, kick him in the chest, snatch him up, pull him out, and got to dog walking him a little bit. None too major, right? Nothing I could be charged with now, but he just got beat up a little bit. Now, that was all because he went against the grain. So that was my first time ever seeing that, right? I've heard other stories of people, not wanting to gangbang all of a sudden and then they stop, which is a good thing, man. You probably wouldn't be good at it anyways. I wasn't, right? But that's just how that goes. But back to Mohawk Matt, he did that. He's the southern white guy, and now he's getting all this clout and all this because he's telling these crazy, outlandish prison stories. But I'm here to tell you guys, a couple of them have been exposed. I know Homie Hangout did a good video on it. Dubs did a good video on it. There's several people doing videos on it. So I just wanted to give you my 2 cents. Now, it doesn't affect me either way. If you guys want to continue to listen to him tell his stories, they're actually some good stories. They're just not real. Not all of them, right? You put a little salsa on it, little mild salsa, brother, on the tacos, and that's what you get. Now, that doesn't mean that this man didn't live through some hardship because anyone that goes to prison does. Come on, bro. Steel toe boots in a California prison yard if you don't stop it. The fuck you think it was? A punk rock concert? And talking about white severing people's heads off and right in front of the cops on the black side of the yard. He was a white crip. Bro, what I think, this is the way I think. I think a white crip beat your ass and you're so mad in your interpretation of the version that you want to tell, you guys cut his head off. My thing is, if you were there, why didn't you get charged? I'm just saying. With that being said, thumbs up, and it's just content to talk about, man. Again, man, I have no hatred in my heart for this guy. Don't even really know him, but man, he tells some amazing stories. You know what I'm saying? And to see how the people embrace him now, they're like, oh, that's the homeboy Mohawk Matt. That's not the homeboy Mohawk Matt. He stopped being your homeboy when he got locked up. Now he gets out. Now I guess he could be your homeboy again, but he took a time out from the South Side to be a white man, brother. And then he came back. I don't know. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people, man. Thank you.